things like that. I think there's a slide in here that'll talk about it more. But it's a very stripped down version of FreeSWITCH. I think we only load like 5 or 6 modules of the hundreds that are available. And then everything else is just Kazoo commands on the fly in real time. So if you want to install FreeSWITCH, again, the R15B is because Mod Kazoo is an Erlang C application, but it's built against the R15B release of Erlang. That's why you'll see like R16B in the repos as well. I would hope by the end of the year that we're on R16 in force, but right now R15 has been the most stable for us. Everyone got it? Cool. Okay, so again, etc Kazoo is the root of configurations, FreeSWITCH being the specific thing we're looking at. And then it pretty much follows a typical FreeSWITCH install after that. Autoload configs, it's where you configure the various modules that are going to be loaded by FreeSWITCH. Certs if you're doing TLS. And then the SIP profiles, and Kazoo by default comes with SIP interface 1. You can, of course, extend and add your own SIP interfaces. And there's been some community work from Alan Evans to allow you to specify on gateways and on devices and things like that which interface to actually use. Because up to this point it was hard-coded to be SIP interface 1. And I think Alan's contributions allow you in the gateway, in your carriers or in your devices to specify. So if you have customers that come in over a VPN connection or come in over different interfaces, you can create those SIP interfaces and route over them, still using Kazoo. And then the FreeSWITCH.xml is the main XML file, which then includes all of the sub config files. Those are kind of the highlights. So go ahead and open the modules.conf.xml in all of the configs, and you'll see that there's not a lot being loaded in a default Kazoo installation. But of course, you are more than welcome to enable and start other modules if you so choose. The two main ones, Mod Kazoo and Mod Sophia. Mod Kazoo obviously being the interface between Kazoo and FreeSWITCH, and Mod Sophia being the SIP signaling. From an operational perspective, Mod Sophia does not load when FreeSWITCH starts in a default Kazoo installation, because Kazoo itself will start it when it has attached to FreeSWITCH. This is so that FreeSWITCH doesn't start up and start talking to Camilio saying, hey, I'm alive. Camilio sends it a call, but Kazoo hasn't connected yet, so nothing can progress. So it's just wasted effort. So that's why if you start FreeSWITCH without Kazoo ready, Mod Sophia should not be loaded. It should not be processing phone calls. That tends to catch people unaware. And these are basically the other modules that we rely on. The main ones being Mod Conference for conferencing, multiplexing of RTP, Mod Commands. Those are all your UUID underscore whatever commands, things like that to actually do things to a call. Mod HTTP cache, all of the media that we fetch from Kazoo and from third-party HTTP sources. HTTP cache will cache those locally on the local FreeSWITCH server so that subsequent uses won't require that round trip. And then span DSP for faxing T38 and that kind of stuff. And then most of the codecs should be loaded. So yeah, this is the SIP interface. Most of the defaults are pretty sane and common sense and shouldn't need to be mucked with. Sometimes you'll need to muck with session timers. I'm trying to think what other. I think the TLS stuff is sorted out. You can do, if you're doing Amazon, this is where you're going to set like your external RTP IP that it'll set in the SDP, things like that. Trying to think if there's anything else interesting in there. Let's see, Kazoo, FreeSWITCH. So you shouldn't have to muck with this, but in case you care, we have two primary ACL lists, trusted and authoritative. Authoritative is for your Camellio servers. This is FreeSWITCH saying, I'm going to trust these no matter what, but I'm going to look for the x-fs-auth header to do validation. So in the authoritative ACL list, that's where all your Camellio servers or any other SVCs that you might have will go. The trusted ACL list is for your carriers. This is for endpoints that do not do username password authentication. You would put those IPs in the trusted ACL list. And you'll see that in the system config database when you edit your ACLs, it's trusted and authoritative. This is very confusing, so the sup commands for editing these things talk about them in terms of SVCs and carrier ACLs. So that's why there's a little difference in naming between the sup commands, which is just a command line tool to interact with Kazoo, and the way we name them in the FreeSWITCH configs. So if you were curious why, that's why. But that's where you're, when you do devices that auth by IP, carriers, that kind of stuff, they go in the trusted ACL list.